Good evening. Welcome to what is today's date? The 22nd of May, Foxborough Town Planning Board meeting. This meeting will be broadcast live and recorded by Foxborough Cable Access. There may be people who call in on Zoom and give us testimony as well if necessary. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And planner report?
Sure. There is a lot going on. Already, when was town meeting? We already have 10 items as placeholders on next town meeting warrant, which is great. The usual, nothing heard back on ADUs or MBTA communities from the folks we're waiting on. I was really hoping to be able to say that we had MBTA communities all clear, and we were told informally that we should be hearing a final determination anytime now and that they didn't see any major problems, so, fingers crossed on that one. Master plan, this is important. We launched biweekly surveys for residents to take as part of the master plan process. The first one's economic development based, and we'll keep doing those through the summer and potentially into the fall just to get resident feedback in a pretty, low stakes, informal kind of way. We find that we get broader data that way, but you can't get the kind of in-depth feedback that you can at charrettes, so we like to do it both ways. Our first community events will be held at the new community center on June 3rd, and you're all welcome and encouraged to attend, everyone here that is a Foxborough resident. There will be a senior-directed charrette at 3:45 with everybody's welcome, but it will be marketed heavily through the senior center. And then one is going to be available for general public at 6 p.m. So grant applications, we were approved for zoning changes to solar bylaws as well as special residential developments. I'm just waiting for the executed contract to start planning that project out. We're still waiting to hear back on everything else, and I'm getting close to the due date for my application to MDI for a design of improvements to the shared parking area near the Common. Economic development projects. 131 Morse Street, there will be a filing against the owner just due to the fact that that building was supposed to be demolished. It's been condemned. There's been items that have moved forward, but it's moving too slowly. So the building department, health department made the decision that they needed to act on that one to ensure the safety of folks around there. But there is a potential seller in the wings. I haven't heard anything back about a completed sale, so I don't know the status of it, but I'll let you know if that changes. There were recent public hearings at the State House regarding the State Hospital Auditorium, so hopefully that project will also be moving in the near term. Finally, Neponset Avenue, we're building out a story map for the project. We've got some more work to do between Ryan Norton and myself, but we're hoping to release a survey specific related to Neponset Avenue and what people want to see there, as well as having a charrette in early July. Other items, last time around I told you about the lack of an adequate land use definition that just encompasses senior housing. We do have age-restricted housing, but there's nothing that's really attached to it, and that kind of limits the ability for developers to be creative in trying to hit the middle market that's not eligible for the subsidized senior housing, but not wealthy enough to afford the $5,000-6,000 a month senior housing with all the bells and whistles. So in addition to that, another item that came to my awareness, and thank you to Bill Buckley for pointing this out to me, is that within the guidelines themselves, the only zone that actually has dimensional requirements spelled out is Chestnut overlay. So nowhere else in our bylaws fleshes out the dimensional requirements for assisted living / senior housing generally. So we're going to have to give that some thought as to what we want those to be. Obviously, in certain zones, there are no dimensional requirements that really fit that use. So it's definitely an area that we're going to have to work on. I again might have another charrette this summer. It seems like the summer of community engagement again, to get seniors' thoughts on what might be appropriate and what they need. So we'll have drafts of some improvements, but I think this is going to be a long-term project for me this summer. And finally, our zoning map. The base map for our zone, like our town-wide zoning map, is it's from 1990. We've added to it, but we've not changed the underlying base map. So Ryan Norton came to me, and he wants to take on this project. He noted a couple of discrepancies between our zoning map and the language. And what What that means is that we're probably going to have 3 articles on the town meeting warrant related just to that. The first one will be transitioning that 1990 base map, making a clean map dated 2025 with not just the information from the 1990 map, but everything that we've approved at town meetings since. So incorporating all that information and transitioning it to geographic information systems, which didn't exist back then.
Ryan Norton is.
Oh, sorry. Ryan Norton's our GIS specialist. He works out of DPW, but he's a huge partner to our department.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize for that. The second article is going to be cleanup, because a lot of the parcels that we're looking at, actually, they're just parcel fragments that are zoned just different ways. So just to clear up confusion for residents, if the last 2 feet of their property is zoned industrial, we'd like to trim it off so that it follows the property lines where it makes sense. So it wouldn't be like a substantive change, it would just be like a cleanup to reduce confusion when residents are looking at our zoning map. And then finally, the third article that would come out of that would be the clarification of the language itself, to make sure that we're ranking what you look at when you're determining the boundaries of the zoning districts based off of priority of, center line of right-of-way was one of the things that is measured from property lines, or another thing. So, we want to make sure that that's clear, so that people like Ryan in the future, when they're looking back and trying to do this again in 2060 when there's new technology, they'll have something more solid and clear to follow. So that's it for me.
Very good. Excuse me. We have some minutes from April 24th. Oh, anything else in active subdivisions while we're talking about this?
No, we have, as you know, we have a few subdivisions that are currently under construction. This past week, we had a meeting for a pre-paving meeting for Pioneer, so 204 East Street is getting ready to put their binder coat. So things are moving pretty well there.
Okay. I'm sorry, so we have some minutes, April 24th, 25.
Jeff, you all good?
Yep, I'm good.
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from April 24th, 2025 as written.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I abstain.
Before we move on to the next, I've got to make a disclosure that I am the former owner of 38 Pine Acres Road.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the A&R plan for 3840 Pine Acres Road.
Is there anybody
We have
represent?
a representative on Zoom.
Very good. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the board. Attorney Keith Hampy from Winborn, Hampy and Chan, with offices at 411 Washington Street in Dedham, Massachusetts. I'm just making sure that you can hear me okay?
Yeah. Yes.
As Ms. Basile stated, she is the predecessor in title for 38 Pine Acres Road. We're before the board this evening, though, seeking the approval of Form A application for endorsement of a plan believed to not require approval. The basic underlying reasoning for the board tonight is that we have two parties, 38 Pine Acres Road and 40 Pine Acres Road, who have come to an agreement to sell a piece of property from one to the other. We have presented a plan. We presented a Form A. I believe you have a copy of the plan to review. I've also submitted a project narrative for the board's review. The breakdown is that parcel, or the new lot number 1 will be created at 38 Pine Acres Road, will contain 57,984 square feet, so still within the requirements of that zoning area. I believe the requirements for that zoning area are 40,000 square feet. And new lot 2 will be 62,016 square feet of land. So no further relief is required from the Zoning Board of Appeals. And we've submitted this believing that it's not subject to the subdivision control law, because both parcels or both lots will front on a public way in the town of Foxborough.
Anything you have about this, either of you?
No.
So is the existing owner going to reside there, or are they selling off both pieces? I'm sorry,
I apologize, Mr. Chairman, you cut out for a second.
I'm saying, is the owner going to live in one of those, either A or B, or is he just selling off both parcels?
No, Lot 1 will still be 38 Pine Acres Road, and the current owners will remain there. Lot 2 will be 40 Pine Acres Road, and they will still remain there as well
Oh,
for the
okay.
foreseeable future.
Okay, thank you.
It's just a small, just to clarify, there's a small parcel A that's identified on the plan
Right.
of 2,016 square feet that is being conveyed between the parties.
Right.
Motion.
Okay, sure.
Make a motion to approve the ANR 3840 Pine Acres Road.
Second?
Any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the board.
Good luck.
Take care.
Take care.
Okay, being just slightly past 7:10 PM, continue public hearing, site plan review, special permit, oh, no, we just did that. No, this is Belcher Road.
Do we have to do this?
We have to do 66.
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. 6062 North Street
I'll keep you on
subdivision.
track.
Thank you very much. Helps if I have my glasses on. For a special permit decision.
So part of your packet has the conditions, the draft conditions for this subdivision. At the last meeting, the board voted to close the public hearing,
Correct.
but wanted to have conditions before voting on this project. So this was sent to the board earlier this week
Yeah.
for your review.
So, did you have any questions about any of the waivers that were requested or anything else?
There was only one waiver that was requested, and it was for the basin to be on the,
Front yard?
there's
Yeah.
no backyard, no
Yeah.
rear yard. And in the plans, it shows that we had a discussion about adding some arborvitae, some plantings
Yes.
along North Street.
Yes.
So that's also part of the conditions. And condition number 11 is the stockade fence that we discussed, separating the lots from 70 North Street.
All right.
Motion.
Yes, please.
I make a motion to approve 6062 North Street subdivision special permit decision.
I'll second.
Any further questions from anyone at the board? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we have a continued public hearing, site plan review, special permit, 0 East Belcher Road, M108P1, contractor yard for J. Cook Realty LLC. I'll talk about that later. Mr. Buckley, how are you tonight?
Good, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Bill Buckley from Bay Colony Group, and I'm here representing the applicant, Jeff Cook. And we left our last meeting, and I think one of the, I don't know what we accomplished our last meeting. We had a lot of information put out, we had a lot of discussion, and then the board wanted to see the site. So we did the site walk a week or two ago. And I guess today, I can answer or try to answer any questions you might have as a result of that walk. And we can just continue on.
Please.
I think it might be a Barney, though. Is that okay?
You have questions for me? Sure, of course.
Thanks, Barney. So a question that I had, and I asked Catherine, and she said it was appropriate to bring up this evening here, is I appreciate what we're trying to do to get this gentleman in compliance, and the change that's been proposed. Where I lose faith is that he does not have a history of following the zoning bylaws to date. A tow yard, I could get behind that with the clear understanding of what is allowed in a tow yard and what isn't. And I'm hopeful that old cars and trucks with trees growing through them, even though they are vehicles, wouldn't be allowed. How clear can we be of what can be there and what can't be there? How specific? Because I feel like I want to give you guys all the teeth in the world to get this matter addressed, but I just get a bad sense that this is just going to still be an issue even if we do that.
And it's been an issue for a long, long time.
Yes.
Let me just give you a little bit of sort of background to back into responding to your question. So in February of 2023, Mr. Shippey, in his capacity as the town zoning officer, determined that a large portion of the property was being used as a junkyard. And he issued a cease and desist order. Mr. Cook appealed that to the zoning board. And we spent the better part of the next year trying to work with him to clean it up. And in fairness, he did make some progress, but it was too little, it was taking too long, and we had no reasonable expectation that he would successfully clean it to our satisfaction within a satisfactory, reasonable period of time. So we accordingly issued a decision upholding Mr. Shippey's determination that was appealed. What we've more recently done is reached an agreement for judgment, and you have received a copy of that. Hopefully some of you have read it. This is more than just a settlement agreement. This is a court order. This is no different than if this matter had gone to trial and the court had issued this as its determination. And built in here are various forms of ability for us to enforce whatever is ultimately determined. Now, part of what the agreement does is set forth a process to determine what is and is not related to his towing business. And by August 31st, the only items of personal property that should be on the parcel, on the property, and that's the entire property, both 24 and 0 East Belcher, are items that are reasonably and actively related to his towing business. Items that have no relationship whatsoever to the towing business need to be removed by August 31. Now, he has removed some items, and you can see that in the parcel that you visited, because that is cleaner than it had been. He has designated for our benefit other items that he will be removing by August 31. But there's a vast difference between what he has said he is going to remove and what he ultimately has to remove. And the agreement calls for us to reach really an agreement with him as to what is inherent in his business and should remain on the property. We had a meeting with him last week. It was at our regular zoning board meeting, so it was a public meeting. And we determined that certain items should be and can be, and I think he agreed will be, stored inside. We have a list, which I think you've seen, that is 8 pages long. Many of the items there are tools, fabrication materials, things of that nature that can and should be stored inside. We still have some agreement to reach as to where inside is, whether it's going to be that building or shed. He's presented to us the possibility of a shipping container, but there's more to be determined as far as that. But the big issue is with respect to trucks and trailers and other things that are on that property, much of which you probably, saw. What is inherent in his business? What is he actively using and can remain on the property versus what has to go by August 31st? Now, next Friday, Blair Crane, who's on our board, and Steve Chaplin, who is our attorney, will be visiting the property and meeting with Mr. Cook and his attorney, hopefully to pare this list down even further. I'd like to say that I'm hopeful, but I can't say that I'm optimistic. I can't say that I'm cautiously optimistic, and I can't say that I'm wildly optimistic that after that meeting, there'll be nothing left to discuss, that they will reach an agreement as to what has to go and what is going to stay. So there will still be some items, hopefully a small number, but some items that there's going to be disagreement about. And what the agreement then calls for is for a neutral third party to resolve that difference. And ideally, that neutral third party will act fairly quickly, reach a determination. There's nothing more that can be done to appeal the matter. Reach a determination so that by August 31st, we'll all know exactly what is going to stay and what is going to be taken elsewhere. Now, if in the future, Mr. Cook does not comply with his requirements, we have options. Again, this is a court order. We can go to the court to get an enforcement order. We can go to the court to hold him in contempt. And ultimately, if it becomes necessary, we can request a receiver. So the agreement, and again, the court order gives us the options to enforce whatever ultimately is determined. And ideally, Mr. Cook will act in good faith and will cooperate, and we won't have to take those kinds of actions. But they are available to us.
And under that agreement, does that prevent them from bringing more of the similar types of machinery, et cetera, that's been there for years onto the property? Or does it exclude him or from doing that? Or, because I think one of the main concerns that the board, thought of was environmental concerns. You have a lot of old equipment that potentially could be leaking materials onto the site, tires stacked up and things like that, which we know are not safe in this world today.
And
I'm sorry.
will be removed from the property.
What's that?
And the tires will be removed from the property.
But I mean, just
Yeah.
things like that in general, I mean, so that, once he gets the things that need to be in storage, is there any superseding order that says that he cannot bring items that we have to have them removed to replace those, and they can go on the site?
Well, again, he can only keep their items that are utilized in the business. Now, I suspect if he wants to get rid of one truck and replace it with another one, that, to my mind, would be satisfactory. Probably what we'll need to do when we ultimately determine, what is gone and what is there is reach a memorandum of understanding as far as those kinds of issues. But he does have an obligation under the agreement to comply with the zoning bylaw and to comply with the agreement, obviously, its terms and conditions itself. So hopefully, again, he'll act in good faith, and hopefully we won't have to take those kinds of actions. But if need be, we have the leverage and the teeth to do so.
And would we incur additional outside counsel costs if we have to go that route?
Yes and no. As far as a neutral third party, that would be a shared expense. Obviously, if we have to go to court to get an order from the court, it's our counsel who's going to do it, so we would have to pay for it. We can always ask for costs and fees. That's up to the court if it comes to that.
Barney?
Thank you, Barney.
One other thing we have the option of doing is ourselves going, again, assuming we reach an agreement, but he doesn't comply with it, we have the option ourselves of going on the property. Won't be me, but retaining somebody to go on their property and remove it. And the cost for that would be a lien against the property itself.
Okay, I thought I had read something similar to that in the decision, and I was gonna bring up that point. I'm glad you just did. So we do have the right to enter the property in view, so hopefully we can keep it compliant.
Barney, can I ask, I'm trying to get at the sort of root of this and the issues from Mr. Cook's point of view of potential motivation and leverage. So do I understand correctly that the only reason that he's seeking site plan from this board is because that's part of the judgment agreement?
Correct.
It's not something that he would be doing to further his business interests or anything like that?
Correct.
So there's really, I'm thinking there's no leverage from us that we have to move that along quickly or withhold it? Because I know, I mean, is it your thinking that it would be more advantageous to kind of sit on this and see what happens in terms of cleanup activities?
I think you can sit on it, but for a fairly short period of time. Again, I think after Mr. Crane and Mr. Chaplin view the property next week and report back to us, we'll have us being the board, we'll have a better idea of what our next steps are. So on June 12th, which is our next meeting, we either will be, fingers crossed, knock on wood, able to say we're satisfied with the situation, or what's our next step? And our next step may be to determine that we need to engage a third party, a neutral party. So, from Mr. Cook's standpoint, again, he's got a deadline of August 31st.
Right.
And as I sit here today, I'm not inclined to extend that period of time.
Oh, absolutely not.
I
And
mean,
our next meeting is on the 12th as well.
So if you reach a decision tonight, that's fine, but
prepared to do
my recommendation would be to wait at least until June 12th.
I was actually more inclined to go towards the other way, but that's just my thinking at the time. Another question comes to, in the little sheet that we had about questions that were asked last week or 2 weeks ago, and I think it was Tracy that brought it up in terms of a bond, and the answer was that it didn't seem that would fly, that this board would be able to impose that sort of guarantee. And I just kind of thought, mainly because I was thinking about Maple Crest decision tonight, is even the way that we pursue those in our other approvals, it's never imposed. There are choices, there are options that the applicant has. Hey, if you want to finish the whole cleanup first, then, you're cool. Or if you don't want to go that route, then we could consider some sort of guarantee just to move this thing forward in the interim. So I just wanted to put that out there for thought as well.
Well, let me put it this way. I think the more teeth we have, the more leverage we have, the better the opportunity to reach the ultimate objective, which is cleaning the property appropriately and having it used appropriately.
Well, Catherine, was it did you put that together?
I did, yeah.
So it said there that council had thought that would be a no-go. Was that to you?
Correct. Yeah. I
Advisory
reached
committee?
out to town council and I put the question to him whether it would be an option for this board to impose a bond, and if cleanup is not, satisfactory, we could call the bond and use those funds to transport items off-site. He said that's not something that can be imposed by a body like this, but potentially there's room through the courts, but he copied Steve on it. I didn't hear back from Steve, so I don't know.
The only reason I brought it up is because it never really is an imposition. It's, here are your choices, you decide how you want to pursue that.
Yeah.
But
So I know that during the site walk, I'm not sure if it was Mr. Buckley or someone else mentioned the fact that as part of this, there'll be some correction of the roadway. So it's like right now, if you come out from the yard, it's like pretty much a blind spot there.
Yeah.
So and is that in this legal thing that has to be done, or is that a town responsibility, or we don't know?
I mean, the agreement doesn't itself cover that particular issue, but that's part, as I understand it, part of the site plan process.
Okay. I think I'm with.
I do have a
Go ahead.
question. I know our Department of Health rendered some decisions. Where and how does that factor in here?
I don't think it really pertains to like the land use that you will be deciding on. I sent that over as an FYI so that you can see some of the other factors that the town's considering through the judgment, because it's a shared judgment on that end.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Mr. Buckley,
Yes.
could you, as just a point of clarification, explain what the changes to the grade would be there? I'm sure there are a few people that are zooming in that probably have some confusion on that.
Sure. If you don't mind, what I can do is share. For some reason, I'm... Oh, here we go. So this is the site plan that we gave you, that you should have in your packet. And I'm going to kind of zoom in a little bit. So what we're doing in here is several things, and I'll just go over them quickly, just to refresh everybody's memory. They were touched on briefly. So right now, the entrance to this facility is right here, which, as you can see, when we walked it the other day, tough curve. You know, you're on the inside of a curve, and it's not a great sight distance. So what we're proposing is to move it over to here. So now you'll have significantly more sight distance toward the north, looking toward Cohasset Street, and then you'll have Forever looking towards the old landfill. So that's one of the things we're doing. The other thing we're doing is, I think everybody saw a lot of, there was vehicles, materials and stuff parked in here. You know, in a regular road, you can see this configuration. It's very odd. This is when the state came in and chopped up Belcher Road when 95 was thrown in. So they put East Belcher in to be the access point, and I don't know why they did it this way, but whatever. So normally you look at the edge of a road and go, oh, the property line's 10 feet inside. Well, in this case, the property line's probably 30 feet inside. So there's vehicles and materials parked there. So that will be ended. That area will be loamed and seeded. And then some of the discussion we had with the professional staff, DPW planning was, you know, can we put some signage there to give it some teeth? I said, you know, it's a town road. You do whatever you want. That's your call. And then could we put some boulders there? I said, again, it's a town road. You know, it's whatever. So that's another issue that was kind of left out there that Kevin was going to talk to Chris Gallagher about and see what his thoughts were. There's a fence. I think everybody saw it. As you go along the edge here, there's some vegetation. It's kind of chopped, but what vegetation is there is there. So what we're proposing is a 6-foot-high wood fence inside the property along the edge of the clearing in order to screen better than what's there today, the activities going on in there. And then finally, what Mr. Bressi just asked is, and if you recall, when we stood on Belcher Road, it dumps down. And if you recall, we saw some of the lowboy trucks that he uses to move stuff. So those things bottom out. So it's just a drill trying to kind of angle them in and go. So what we're proposing is to pick up the grade in there. I think it's about, let me see. Let me zoom in because I can't see anymore. So the bottom here right now is about elevation 284. You can see this grade in the low area. This is 284. And then, so what we're proposing, this heavy grade is 288. So this area will be picked up about 4 feet, the low area. But right now, I think you can see this 284 contour, which I'm outlining, and you can see it goes off in this direction. So what we're proposing is we're gonna pick it up, but we're also gonna pick this up as well over in this area. And this will make sure that the runoff from here is no more than today. It should be less based on the grading we show here. And then what has been proposed in here, which we've agreed to, that again, Kevin Davis came up with, is he asked us to put in an stone infiltration trench kind of along this low area. This is a bowl. So to put that infiltration trench in there for two reasons: to make sure that as much water is infiltrated as possible, to make sure that we're not creating an issue for our neighbors, and then also to, somebody alluded to contamination earlier, to make sure that stays on the property, again, doesn't leave the property. So those are the major things that we're proposing here as part of this. As I mentioned before at our previous discussion, we will not be going outside of the limited clearing. The trees that are there are going to stay there. There is an area kind of in the middle here where stuff has grown up, but I'm talking about the major edge of the tree line along the east, north, and west. So along East Belcher, along the east side, the Rounds property, and the north side is Rounds as well. So we won't be going outside that. The land being used today will be continue the land that's being used.
So what you were just talking about there, to use that area to prevent further infiltration, and I know that the other part of the Cook property is not specific to this, but due to the height there, is there water or drainage that's moving from that site onto this one as well, and will that take care of it?
So what we try to do here, let me show this. See, this is the existing building.
Yeah.
See the elevation 288?
Yes.
That's what we were trying to match.
Okay.
So we're trying to match that. So the short answer is, it's probably today going in there. And then when we're done, it will still go in there, but it will be contained as it is today. So we're trying to level it out to be level with the existing building.
Okay.
Bill, you had, just in your remarks, you had mentioned that that fence was going to go up, and you used the terminology to kind of, shield the activities that are going on in there. And I think one of the things that, for me at least, that's problematic about this application is that's not really defined. So I think what would be helpful, for me anyway, I can't speak for anyone else, is as part of the application itself, to have a request for what Mr. Cook would be planning to store in that area. Now, I don't know how many of those big trailer units he has. I assume that's the primary place and use for that parcel. That from everything I've heard in these conversations, that's what I'm thinking, is that that parcel will be basically used for the storage of the vehicles used in the towing business or the trucking or transporting business. And so I think the board would like to know, how many of those, just the general nature of them. Will equipment that is being moved on them be stored there as well, on some sort of transitional or short-term basis? And once we have a little better handle on that, in terms of use, I think it would be an easier and more, a better way to approach what are going to be some conditions, going forward or attached to any decision, if that makes sense.
It does.
Because right now, it's just kind of like the blind leading the blind.
Jeff, maybe I can give you a little bit of information on it. So according to the list that Mr. Cook has provided us, there are currently 31 trailers, and I guess that would be the equivalent of the lowboys, on the property. He's designated 8 as being items that he's going to remove, and 2 other of the trailers are customer items. And on the basis of our meeting last week, anything that's on this list that's a customer item has to go. It's not his, it's not part of his business. So that leaves 21 trailers that he's identified as being used in the business, and that's obviously something that we have to drill down on to determine how many there are.
Well, again, I'd like to, think about those types of issues as part of this application. And, you know, I'm hoping that they're all not those gigantic trailers, that there's a variety of them, but maybe that's something that, you know, you can find out, or it's not really your job, but I do think it should be part of the application.
And again, our position is that what should be on the property as of August 31 are only items that he's using in the business, that he's actively using.
Directly related
Yeah.
to the use.
Well, and again, you know, just the nature of this whole, beyond the application, what we're trying to accomplish here, it gets kind of messed up. So I've kind of come to the place where we need to focus on this application. And to the extent we can condition and control activities here, you know, the rest of it is an act of God, I guess, or maybe for the courts, but.
And those items that he says are part of the business, and it include a lot of those trailers that, as you mentioned, there'll still be 20-something trailers left over. Do any other boards have the ability to ask to have access to those, just to see what's stored in them? I mean, I don't want a repeat of Moore Street, you know, where you have trailers there that have been there for decades, and, you know, now there's an environmental issue. So I'm not trying to trade a headache for a stomachache for Mr. Cook, but I just want to make sure that it's not our purview, but does the Board of Health have a purview, or some other board that could say, listen, before, not to condition our thing, but to say, we reserve the right to, you know, make sure that those are and, you know, not unhealthy for the
Well,
public.
the Board of Health has been involved in this matter, so they certainly, or I should say Mr. Brennan has,
Okay.
on behalf of the board.
Okay.
One other clarification, Barney, you had mentioned the issue of customer vehicles or customer equipment. Would that include, because my understanding is he has a tenant over there, so I would assume there would have to be some leeway in that regard. So I just wanted to make sure that that was in the mix, or at least taken under consideration.
That's an awful lot of trailers for that size lot.
That's what I thought. And that's why I'm
That's a
saying,
lot of
well, the
trailers,
ones that I
sorry.
saw, the big ones.
And
Not utility trailers.
And I honestly, I mean, given the size of his business, if we looked at the financials, I don't think there's any need for that many trailers.
I mean, we could obviously insist that they're all registered equipment as opposed to unregistered.
Well, if they're being used for business, they have to be registered.
And so,
I mean, the position that I've taken, that the board has taken, there are trucks on that property that have not been inspected in a number of years. There are trucks on that property that are unregistered, and I expect that most of those trucks are inoperable. You know, my position is that if he hasn't been using them, if they're unregistered, or if they're not inspected, they should go. That they're not actively being used in the business.
Agree.
Well, what about the ones that are holding the trees up?
Well, in the building,
Depends on which trees Mr. Buckley wants to leave. So.
in the building commissioner's advisory, he had mentioned that even, you know, one unregistered vehicle is a no-go. What about heavy equipment? Or is that not specifically referenced in the bylaw?
It's the same thing. If any equipment there is being used in the business, it can say. I mean, he has forklifts listed, he has other items of equipment that are listed. But we need to determine whether it's used in the business. I mean, is a bulldozer used in his towing business?
Yeah.
Well, I'm asking it rhetorically.
Yeah.
But that's something that, you know, Mr. Crane will be delving
I'm
into.
sure there are arguments to be made that potentially, yes, you know.
We'll see.
The bulldozer, no.
what about what he puts on top of the trailers?
Well, that was
He could stack
that's
all
what I
kinds
was
of stuff
getting
on
at.
top of trailers and.
And that's why I was saying, you know, would there be, that's why we would want to be thinking about conditioning
Absolutely.
short-term storage there, if that in fact was the case. That was exactly what I was
These
thinking.
would be really tight conditions.
So,
Would have to be.
So, do we want to postpone this till after the meeting of the 12th with
I think so.
Just want me to continue? I'll make a motion to continue.
Actually, before you do that,
Okay.
we talked the other day about perhaps having a joint meeting. Is that something you want to?
Yeah, no, I wanted to bring this to the board's attention. Thanks, Barney. So when is the next CBA meeting?
The 12th,
It's also the 12th?
yes.
Okay, so we were talking internally about potentially that might be a good idea. That way, planning board can listen to ZBA's conversation and discussion, and that might inform your next steps or conditions or whatever.
I think that's a
actions.
great idea.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thursday? Yep.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing related to the site plan review special permit 0 East Belcher Road, Contractor Yard, J. Cook Realty LLC until June 12th at,
I don't know yet.
I don't have the.
I mean, our typical meeting in June would be the 19th, but because that's Juneteenth, we're meeting on the 12th. And what Diana had said was, depending on how busy you were, it would depend on when we would start. You know, we could theoretically start at 5:30 or 6 o'clock. We have one application to consider, which shouldn't take very long. So, you know, we could start at 6:30 and then meet with you at
together
7:30,
at
something of that
7.
nature.
Yeah,
and then put this on like for 7:10 or something.
yeah. That sounds okay.
I'll second that.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I ask a question?
Thank you.
Before we, so on the 12th, you're going to go, the board is going to go with the ZBA, and are you going to be discussing it, or is it actually a board meeting?
I mean, in the past, when I've done joint meetings, each board, votes themselves in kind of thing. That way, the one meeting serves as the official public record of both bodies.
I'm not going to be there. I might be able to call in, but I have another hearing that night.
I wouldn't anticipate that a decision would be forthcoming.
I'm sorry?
I would not anticipate that a decision would.
Well, that's what I was asking. You're going to meet to listen,
Yep.
and then probably the next meeting after that, you can continue the discussion on conditions.
You know, from our standpoint, I think Blair will be reporting back on what happens next week, and then we would be making a decision as far as our next step, whether that's to get a neutral party involved or continue discussions with Mr. Cook and his counsel. So that would certainly give you a sense as to where the process is going and how much longer it might take.
Yeah, it doesn't sound, Bill, like we'd make any decision. We good?
Good. I think we're good.
So June 26th would be the next meeting after that, right? And then after that would be July 10th? Right, okay.
Are you thinking June 26th?
Yeah, either one of those is I think, fine for me, yeah, right now. I just have another hearing that's unfortunately running exactly in sequence with this in Attleboro. So I'm just looking at my schedule, but I definitely can't be here the 12th.
I might not be here the 26th.
I'm questionable too. Sorry.
So that'd be July 10th then, probably.
I don't think I'll be here the 26th now that I think about it.
Yeah, why don't we do,
just want to continue it to the 10th of July?
let's
Sure.
continue it to the 10th of July. At,
But you're gonna meet,
But
you're gonna meet with them.
Yes,
Yeah, we can't
so
do that.
at
continue.
at the
No,
next
no,
meeting,
correct.
you can continue it to
Yes,
the
okay.
10th of
Okay,
July.
gotcha.
That
Okay,
makes sense.
Yeah.
I was just following Kevin, which obviously I shouldn't do.
Right.
Did you vote to continue yet, or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So it being sometime past 7:15 PM, we have a public hearing modification of special permit 95 Washington Street, temporary parking lot, reduction in the number of spaces for Star Fox Realty Trust.
Which lot is this?
Oh, I'd like to say lot.
I don't know. Which one?
You know where Star Petroleum is? Enterprise
Oh,
Commercial?
yeah, okay.
Right there.
That's what I needed.
Lease trail is.
Yep, yeah.
Oh, boy. Oh, we thought you just came in because you missed us.
He does.
He does miss us.
Good
I
evening,
realize
Mr.
you're
Chairman,
representing Mr. Sagan this. Okay. Welcome.
board members. Good to see everybody.
Too. Likewise.
Been a while. Mr. Seg couldn't be here tonight, so he asked if I would fill in if the board has any questions. I'll try and help the best I can.
So Mr. Seg he has a temporary parking lot. He's requesting a reduction in the number of spaces. Trying to just see here if he designates how many.
Yeah, he does. He wants to go,
743 to 321.
yeah, he's effectively halving it.
So 422 spot reduction.
So would you like to, enlighten us as to why he's making the request and et cetera, et cetera?
Absolutely. Currently, Mr. Seg at 95 Washington Street has a special permit for a temporary parking lot, and it's for 743 spaces. Under the current license at that location, he uses the front portion of the lot, which consists of two parcels. From the rear, the front parcel, I believe you have a plan from Bay Colony in front of you. It's dated April 15th, 2025. The front parcel, which is on map 31, shown as parcel 002, which is in red. Currently, he leases that for used cars. And during stadium events, he'll relocate those cars and use that for parking. And then the rear lot, which is vacant, he uses that for the total of 743, I believe. He currently has a long-term lease, and if you go by the lot now, you'll see large RVs back there. So that's a long-term lease.
In the
And
back
becau-
portion?
What's that?
Oh, in the front.
Some of them are in the front now too, but the majority of them are in the rear, which is really infeasible to move those for any event. So they're going to be there permanently. So what he's requesting to do is just use the front portion of the lot, which would be for 321 cars, and just use those for as a temporary parking lot. So that's why it would be the reduction, and just use those, and the back portion would just be for the RVs.
And does he need to come in with this application for a modification, just so he won't have to pay for all the spaces?
He's a businessman.
Oh, I was just curious. So in other words, this is how the town calculates.
Correct. So it's a reduction of 422
Yep.
overall. So that's what the modification of the existing special permit's for.
Gotcha.
Best I can explain it.
Any concerns from the staff?
No, we have.
Want me to do it? Okay, hold on. I need to find, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
Finish reading it. Modification of special permit 95 Washington
Close it.
Street. Do you want to second me again now?
No?
Not yet.
Second guess you, but it's not.
Temporary parking lot, reduction number of spaces, Star Fox Realty Trust. Jeff?
I'll second that.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I'll make a motion to approve the modification of the special permit 95 Washington Street, temporary parking lot reduction in number of spaces, Star Fox Realty Trust.
Second.
Other discussion or comment? No? All those in favor?
I
Aye.
Mr. Caspari did a bang-up job.
think you should get a raise. Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Tracy, Maggie wanted me to say, tell her she says hello.
Very nice. All those in favor?
Aye.